All right, well, here we go. Welcome to our first video note lesson. This is really awkward because I'm just sitting here talking to my computer and nobody's in the room, so it feels kind of weird. But today we're talking about why was the U.S. destined to become industrialized. So we've moved past this kind of western frontier settlement, and so we're refocusing back on the East Coast and what's happening in terms of industrialization as a result of what's happening in Europe and how it's coming to the United States. So changes happened after the, oh yeah, look, there's the bell. Woo, okay. Yeah, you're late if you're not in your first hour class. All right. Post-Civil War era changes happened because of a lot of this Western settlement. Some of it had to do with natural resources. People were looking for water to settle by, different natural resources that we were trying to utilize and take advantage of. Inventions were happening to try and make life a little bit easier. This is the kind of big era of, Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell and big American inventors that are coming on the scene. And then also we have a rapidly growing urban population. Urban means city, yes, good. Urban population. So our cities are getting quite crowded and quite dense. And so we have a lot of changes that are happening as a result of these three things. First of all, transportation is changing. Obviously, we have railroads that are moving further and further west. The Transcontinental Railroad is going to be established, and it's going to change because in 1850 we had 9,000 miles of track as opposed to 1869 when the Transcontinental Railroad was completed. And by 1890, we have 200,000 miles of track. So this is a big deal because now we're able to get to those people who settled on the frontier and bring them goods that they may not have had access to prior to this taking place. The railroads allowed things to be transported easier. It promoted trade from whatever people were creating in the West to the East, or perhaps we're getting goods from Asia and we could transport them to the East now. So there's a lot of different things that are coming as a result of trade via the Transcontinental Railroad. George Westinghouse was improving railroad function by inventing something called the air brake system. And this is where we get kind of science-y. And I don't really do science. So yeah, the air brake system, we'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. And George Pullman invented sleeping cars because who wants to ride on a train all the way across the country when it's going to take, 2 days or whatever. So Pullman was actually kind of a wacky dude and invented sleeping cars. Here is a picture of the Westinghouse air brake system. So now it's all completely clear to you, isn't it? Yeah, me too. And this is a picture of one of the Pullman sleeping cars. So people were able to ride in a luxury car across the country, and so they were able to use these as transportation in a fashion that many East Coast kind of aristocratic types wanted to engage in. There's a little bed there. Much nicer than the sleeping cars that I traveled through Europe on. Building materials are also changing. We're starting to use more concrete, steel, and glass to build skyscrapers, which is something that's coming up. The Bessemer process. Henry Bessemer saw a process that was taking place in England and observed what happened with that change and then created a stronger steel by pushing the oxygen out of iron to use materials that were used in buildings. The Mesabi Range, the Iron Range in northern Minnesota, 100 miles long. We are starting to really take advantage of those supplies that we had on the Iron Range, and we really were at the forefront of kind of the production of these materials for new cities. Andrew Carnegie comes into the forefront with Carnegie Steel Corporation, and he does some things with industry that many people frowned upon, but it ended up making him a steel mogul, so he obviously was thrilled with it. And J.P. Morgan was another big steel name. We are starting to make railroad tracks out of these materials and also farm machines. So we have McCormick and Deere, John Deere. Yeah, this is where we start making some of those metal farm machines that are going to be able to help make life easier on the farm. And then we also have things being built like the Brooklyn Bridge and skyscrapers, again, out of these new building materials that we had not utilized prior to this in this kind of large-scale fashion. And there's a picture of the Brooklyn Bridge going from Manhattan, which is a large island, over to the borough of Brooklyn. There's another picture of the Brooklyn Bridge. I would not want that job. Okay. Again, we're talking about why the United States is becoming industrialized. We are starting to use different energy sources. We had oil, electricity, and coal that we started to utilize more and more, and this allowed us to be able to power things in a way that we hadn't prior to this. So we're starting to utilize energy sources. Edwin L. Drake used the steam engine to drill for oil. So we're starting to kind of take advantage of where we have oil and where people imagine oil to be in our country. And so he was able to move forward that process by, again, making drilling for oil more efficient, kind of like the McCormick and Deere machines were for farming, to make things more efficient and effective. Thomas Edison, he had the first electric generating station. He invented lots of different things. He had over 1,200 patents. Most importantly, well, I don't know, I guess that's a judgment call, but the light bulb and the record player. George Westinghouse, who did the air brake system, also developed the AC. That's not air conditioning, it's the alternating current. So electricity can travel long distances, and it was, again, more cheaper and efficient, which was the goal of, all of these inventions that people were coming up with to utilize these energy sources. And John D. Rockefeller was an oil mogul, and he became the wealthiest man in the world as a result of our shift to kind of focus on oil as a power source. And these are some of these fine men. Can you imagine if you got to sit down and talk with all these men? George Westinghouse, Thomas Edison, Drake, and Rockefeller. Yeah, there they are. Okay, we're starting to communicate in another way. I know I'm going fast, but the beauty of this video is that you can stop and pause it if you need to, or like if you need to go to the bathroom. I wouldn't let you go during class, but you totally could go right now. Just press pause. Done. Awesome. Okay, communications. We started to develop new communications during the Civil War. We started to use a little bit of Morse code and started to use carrier pigeons. No, I'm just kidding. Morse code. I don't really know how to explain it if you don't know what it is. It's a, telegraphic sending device in code. So they could go chick, 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 chick. Like, short, long was a letter, and then you could spell things out. Seems quite time-consuming, but whatever, it worked. So you could send a message across the ocean, which is the first time that we've been able to do that, until we come across the telephone. So Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. He had Bell Telephone Company, founded in 1877. AT&T, American Telephone and Telegraph, was founded in 1900. So we have a couple different communication systems. There is Samuel F.B. Morse. Look at that guy. Look at all those medals. Yeah. I have no idea what they're for. Probably something super cool. I just took a sip of Diet Coke. You can't see that because you can't see me. So I didn't really need to tell you that. But here we go. Alexander Graham Bell. Blank screen. Okay. Industrialization obviously was concentrated in the north. I shouldn't say obviously, that's not true. It was concentrated in the north as a result of that's where factories were being built, and that's where our cities were being populated by immigrants and people. And the urban resources were plentiful, the natural resources were plentiful. The South, again, is more agriculture. We still haven't developed too many major cities in the South as a result of the kind of plantation lifestyle that was set up with the development of our country. Also, on that note, they're rebuilding in the South because a lot of the fighting of the Civil War happened in the South. And it really drove a lot of people out of the ability to rebuild because they didn't have any money. So they lacked capital for investment. That means they didn't have any money to be able to invest in repairing or fixing the stuff that they had. So there were few cities because of the plantations, like I talked about. And oh my gosh, that's the end. Look at that. Okay, so industrialization. Let's just go back and review for 1 second here. You can see me doing all this. This is weird. The U.S. was industrialized for, I don't know why I'm going through these slides. I'm just going to stop because now I'm going to talk to you in class because I'm actually in class. Okay. Huzzah. Whoops, that's not right.